7, we'll get started. Doug is not going to be with us tonight, so we are the mighty bunch. We'll start with public comment. We have 3 attendees.
2. Or 2, yes.
2. So if either of you guys want to say something, feel free to say something, or we will continue moving on. All right, no hands, we'll move. Review and approval of the minutes from the June 11th, 2026 meeting. I'll take a motion for their approval. So moved. Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments, changes, anything else? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Casey, one more time, thank you so much for leading us in that discussion. It was delightful. We are learning every minute of the way. Okay, on to the subgroup updates. Chris, soil testing, wetlands.
Yeah, we've got, looks like we're going down the agreement, we're down to the final brass tacks, if you will. We're gonna get together, it looks like the first.
Yeah.
3 of us will get together and we'll get that finalized and, it's the direction we've been talking about, so there's no surprises there at all.
They are, the last bit that is being discussed right now is how many properties are going to be looked at. Whether apparently there's 82 properties, whether they're gonna look at all 82 or whether some subset is going to happen. And so that's what the July 1 meeting is about. And once that gets determined, they then put a cost on it and submit a contract for approval. Okay, any questions? Going on, business and property owner, I am delinquent in that I did not do the newsletter that I had planned to do, so that is still on my to-do list. You can see that I have added communications to this committee of ours, with not only outreach, but also communications. And so one of the issues around
Sorry,
communications.
it's that hand raise. Groups.
Go ahead, Kim.
I hit that by accident, I'm good.
You're all set? Okay. One of the aspect around communication is, I'm trying to find the right balance between our moving forward and we have a variety of constituencies, not only the people on Mariner's Way, but also the planning commission, the zoning commission, the economic development commission, and trying not to get too far out in front of anybody and then have them say, no, we were never informed. So been back and forth with Jennifer and Chris Costa, and right now, Chris has kind of red circled the August 19th meeting of the planning commission, which she is, but she could turn that into kind of a land use boards meeting and give us the opportunity to come in and make a presentation about where we are and where we're going, answer questions that may have at that point, and see. And I'm comfortable that with a target date like that, we will have sufficient amount of substance to talk about. So I'm comfortable with doing that, but I wanted to bring that up with this group to see whether anybody had any discomfort or whether there was another suggestion along the way.
Can you repeat that date?
August 19th,
I will be away.
you'll be away, okay.
I also might not be able to. I might not have childcare.
Well, we will, we'll be in a position where it will be, video. So if we decide to do this, then we will definitely use one of the meetings before the 19th as being a meeting to organize how we're gonna do, so hopefully you guys can be able to participate in, with that. So that's the thought at this point, and I think, you know, Jennifer sits as the staff person for the Economic Development Commission, and they've been expressing a strong interest in, you know, kind of knowing what we're doing and even contributing to what we're doing, which I appreciate. And I've been watching some of these other development proposals that are coming through the town, and they're having these, what I'll call pre-development meetings with these various boards, and so it's, you know, low key, no one's asking for anything. Just lots of, you know, questions and answers, and the proposers walk away with a better sense of what will be accepted or not accepted. So that's my hope, and if we want to go forward with the 19th, I will let Chris know. We'll kind of schedule that and begin to plan to make that happen. Unless we all want to go on vacation with that one. Okay, streetscape. Now on the streetscape, I wanted to, you know, Kim at the last meeting had raised the question about traffic counts and what was going on with traffic counts. I did ask our friends at Jacobson. They sent a response, which was fairly detailed about how they had not the strips across the street for traffic counts solely. They did have them in one place that was the noticeable place, but apparently there are other mechanisms now at this point that they had at every intersection that was picking up counts, determining what kind of vehicle it was, and all that. So all of that has been collected and is part of that process. So that's good. JT Dunn had sent to me earlier today something very interesting, which is that apparently the State Department of Transportation has free data around traffic counts, and it's not necessarily what happened on May of 2026, but it's, you know, 2025, so you got a little bit of historical data as well. So I sent that off to the folks at Jacobson to say, you know, it'd be helpful to know whether this is at all useful or whether this has been integrated into your work. So we'll get more information on that as time goes on. I'm hoping that maybe by our next meeting, we will have some, you know, preliminary design that we might be able to begin to share with the committee and move from there. Any questions on streetscape? All right, let's go to the design standards discussion and next steps. Casey, how would you like to proceed?
So what I was thinking for tonight is I have started to summarize, and I haven't checked it with Emily and Doug on this, so I should probably
Here's a low
we should
rate.
do that. This end of the school year is brutal, so. I have no idea. So, but I've started to come up with a summary of what I think was kind of the thoughts that came out of it, the general opinions that came out of it. There were a couple of like maybe questions for me that are ways we can start to clarify a little bit. I can put up, I mean, it's a very rough, like, it's like me typing out thoughts. It's not like,
go for it.
but I know I'm visual, so I can put it up if, so I almost hesitate to put it up because don't hold me to it, kind of. This is just what I kind of started to take out of it, and then I figured we could kind of go through that really quick, and then I can start to put some more detail into it, go over it with Emily and Doug. And then what I want to do after that, kind of bring it back to the group, but also have us at that by then there are some things that I wanna kind of compare with the existing zoning, the various existing zones that are in place. Because I think some of the things, like some of the design standards, you know, some of the, I think some of that stuff is already in there, so I think it's a matter of maybe how, what we wanna tweak or add or take away, and then if we look at how that compares with each of the zones that exists, I think that will help to inform us. Are we creating one new zone? Are we creating some subzones? Are we creating like you know, like a part two of a different zone, like where basically it's similar, but I mean, that's done sometimes. So that was my thought, but I'm open to suggestions if anybody wants to do anything.
Yeah, and so a little context, what I thought we could do tonight is let Casey give us a sense of the direction that she's picked up from, you know, from our last meeting. Maybe then think about, are there, you know, does our sense of building design marry up with what our priorities for use were going to be, you know, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if it does, then that's great. Continue forward. If it doesn't, then we need to have a little bit more of a discussion along those lines. So that's kind of how I think this is gonna evolve over the next meeting or two. So.
Okay. Well, maybe because I'm not a panelist, it won't let me share my screen.
Yeah, I tried to promote you, but
Oh,
You did
did I ignore you?
I didn't mind.
If you don't do it, if you don't see it and do it at a certain, I think, time, then
It
it
disappears.
goes away, yeah. Okay. All right, yes, now I have all the, so, okay. Let's see, what's going on with me? It's not- We have to. It won't give me the share screen. Okay, I
Here.
think it's working. Right. All right, so again, this is just sort of the beginnings of a draft. Um. of this. So. Um. Okay, so, and it kind of talks about the uses a little bit too, that Bruce started to talk about, so. I think generally the comfort level was kind of mid-sized buildings and property sizes, like, I think we aren't. The emphasis wasn't on, you know, smaller kind of separate, just individual buildings, and it definitely wasn't on like giant warehousing buildings and things like that. I think maybe around Five, so when we set things like minimum lot size, that would have nothing to do, that would have no impact on existing lots or anything like that. That would only be if somebody came in and was looking to subdivide or something along those lines, that would be kind of like the minimum, so. And these are the kinds of things that I wanna check against what is in the current zoning. But I'm thinking around 5 acres or minimum lot size. Obviously, that's a very rough number, so open to further.
So help me understand what that means.
So generally, it wouldn't matter that much in this zone because we're probably looking more frequently at merging of lots for a development. But if someone wanted to reconfigure lot lines, if a few property owners got together and were kind of shifting around lot lines or transferring property, if somebody wanted to transfer part of their property to a neighbor, somebody wanted to buy part of a neighboring property, it means that none of the lots, the existing lots are what they are, but no lot could be further reduced below 5 acres or whatever we said is the minimum lot size. Every zone has a minimum lot size now. And I didn't look at what it is in the industrial, the marine industrial. A lot of times it's like, you'll see, like a B40 in a town, and that's 43,560 square feet is an acre. So,
So to me, 5 acres seems like a lot.
yeah, and so that's what, I mean, I think that, well, that's why I'm throwing it out there.
Yeah. Do two things, could you make that font a little bigger, because these
Yes.
glasses aren't gonna hold. One, and two is, and it's also just Bruce, let's say, B is always, is a common, like for business, it's a
Right.
business zone.
Right,
And -40 is letting you know that that's an acre.
Right.
The 80 business zone, 2 acres. So as we go up, you're looking at 5 acres, multiply that 40
Mhm.
by the 5, and so that would be a rather large zone. But again, not knowing what's there now, we don't know. You see it, again, your housing, are they quarters, are they half acres? So you can see, the housing acres, are they 0.15, 25, 0.4, it goes up to that acre again.
Mhm.
So it's a quarter acre, half acre, so those are the common dimensions that you see in development. Thank you.
Yeah, better. I should have thought of that, I can.
And then industrial is typically, that'll be a bigger number.
Right,
So maybe the thing to do here would be, I'm trying to change my font. Would be to look at, for me to get a better breakdown for you of maybe not the lot size of every lot that's there now, but kind of a sampling of the lots there now, and then, like I said, what the zoning there, what the various zones there now require.
Would it be helpful if you broke it down and where it was industrial or?
Yeah, that's what I'll do,
Okay.
yeah.
Then they'll have a better feel for exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I can give you some examples in town of like lots or combination of lots that make up like, what's an example of something in town that's 2 acres? What's an example of something in town like that? Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not gonna put the existing zone because I'm saying you can do that. And then I think going back through the survey, I mean, I don't know what everybody else thought or if anybody else went back through it, but going back through it, I think was interesting because it's like there were so many that we were pretty much evenly split on or like leaned a little this way or a little that way. And so I think what sort of came out of it when I went back through was some industrial style buildings were okay if they had the proper building treatments. Some mixed use, like destination style developments were okay, or just, I'll say desirable. And sort of some medium density residential. So like low density residential would be like single family housing. Spread out single family housing. We're talking about, I think, a little bit more than that.
Right.
That's another thing that we would settle on at some point is exactly how high of a density we're talking about, for residential.
I thought it was interesting as you went, and I was started figuring out how to play with the button.
Yeah,
The styles, you know, especially where we talked about mixed use. Everybody got more and more comfortable with what we were talking about.
yes,
But we don't want these big industrial buildings. But wait a minute, like that? Oh,
right, right,
no, it's not gonna be 20 stories? Oh, okay, now I see what you're talking about. That works.
right,
But it changed over time.
Yes.
As we went through that process.
And we
Yeah.
liked
Kind of was doing the
windows.
math.
We love windows.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
They
it
did
here.
like glazing.
Love it. And I think, and I do have that a little further down, I don't know if we wanna get into that or not, but there were some situations where I think we might wanna hash out a little bit, like, we liked this slide, but we didn't like this slide, but like, what's the difference?
Right.
You know, especially from a building design standpoint, where we have to actually put that into verbiage.
Yeah.
And I think that again is where looking at our existing, form requirements is helpful also. Okay, so the next question to Bruce's point earlier, so if we were talking about sort of industrial style with appropriate building treatments, mixed use and medium density residential, that's kind of the gamut of uses. And so it's interesting to think about, can we do them all? Can we allow them all? How do we do that? But generally speaking, is this consistent with the uses that we want? And I don't know if we want to answer that tonight or not, or talk about it tonight, but I think
We'll come
that's-
back to it if we.
yeah, I think that's kind of the question. And then the other thing I think we should consider is some of the slides that we looked at were residential only. Is that something we want to consider or consider in certain areas? Or do we really only want residential when it's mixed with something else? So two things to keep in mind. I called it sort of vintage boho style warehouse conversions. You probably have a much better term for that.
Yeah.
I think those were the ones that people tended to like, was like you took kind of your average warehouse and repurposed it for maybe a more retail or service type use, and so you're like a restaurant or a bar or a brewery or whatever, and it gave it new treatments, but sort of that vintage look. And then the two universal yeses were, there was a set of mixed use. Let's see. 39. So this one got all yeses, which is, these are sort of what I called in my thing, like modern mill. They're sort of like modernized mill buildings, which is really cool. And those particular ones I think are done really well. And then the Nashville slides, that Doug provided, I think. So here, that was also a universal yes. And I think we talked about like building height, obviously.
Right, scale issues.
Right. And I mean, and then the universal no was
You want us to guess?
exactly what my building is, the flat roof, yeah, it was like the flat roof, kind of your standard.
Lots of flowers now.
Yeah, well, and that's part of it too, I think, when we look at our regulations is existing buildings and kind of what, kind of can be done in different circumstances, if someone wants to make improvements.
I think one of the big issues there was all that asphalt up front.
Yes,
And what happened if you had a lot of green space up front and the parking was in the back,
right,
may have changed that.
right,
With a
and
different roof line.
And I think, right, if the roof line, if it has a little more, I think if the bay door wasn't in the front, right, the parking wasn't in the front, it starts to get a little. It looked a little more green in the front, it starts to get a little better. Okay, so for building form, maybe this is, tell me if this is too much. I think we were saying about a 4-story max, 3 to 4 story max. Originally, I had 3 to 4 stories. So I was thinking around 45 feet, that's like a 4-story building, but I will say in my experience, sometimes with newer industrial type buildings, if they do have more than one floor, they need extra room for components between floors. So that's why I suggested adding in a little more height.
That tertiary space to run mechanicals and
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at those buildings that have 12-foot ceilings.
Yeah.
They have 2 feet tertiary space that run everything they need to run, so
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're looking at 14 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Times 4 is
Yeah,
it's 56 feet.
exactly. So building some of that into there, we don't have to do that. We obviously need to check with the fire marshal about what would work building height wise. And the other thing is, we could say you can go up to 45 feet or whatever everybody is comfortable with. But above X number of feet, you have to do X, Y, and Z with the roof line. You have to have these treatments and that sort of thing.
Did you think at all, or I don't, if you could tell from what our responses were, but to me, there's building height, but there's also number of stories, and like in residential, it's usually pretty like well correlated. But for industrial type buildings, because of what you guys are saying, like it's usually not. I guess in my mind, a 45-foot building that's 4 stories would have a lot of visual interest, could have a lot of visual interest on the outside. And look like some of the ones that we all agreed on. But a 45-story building that's actually 14 feet, 2 feet of tertiary space, 14 feet. I don't think that, I think it would look like the ones we universally rejected.
Well, the other
So
thing-
I think
Yeah.
that, like, in the conversation with building height would have to be a conversation like kind of linking it to the number of stories.
Well, so the zoning regs now do also have the number of
Yeah.
stories written into them. The reason, and I actually talked to, I think the reason I didn't think that was, but I hear your point, and maybe there's a solution to it. A lot of modern industrial uses need tall, like the reason you
I
can't
know,
rent
but-
out the older spaces is because the building heights are too low. So I wonder if we could require treatments from the outside that look like, so it's like every number of feet, you have to have some sort of articulation or windows or things like that, so that it.
I can see it going either of 2 ways. One being sort of what you discussed, like that along the street, there's like a rhythm of like a human scale that's like still visible as you're driving down the road. Sort of like what you're saying, like an articulation in a certain number of feet. Or, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, or like, I don't know the latest, but when I was on ARB and we would have people come in with like contractor warehouse, industrial type places, and they did want the height with a lot of clear space, like within the bays and then space above, but they didn't usually have a second floor other than maybe like an office on part of it.
Right.
Like, I don't actually. Are you guys thinking of an actual use that's industrial, that's multi-stories, that's 14 feet?
No, I'm thinking,
I guess that's what I'm wondering, because I can't really imagine that, so I guess I'm just wondering. Is that another way to get at it in the regulations to prevent something from being like that?
I'm seeing it in a mixed use context. Where I've got a ground floor, it's got a retail office type of setting that I'm stacking on top.
Yeah,
And the 2 things that we talked about, especially with respect to the development in Newington. If you height pushed further back off the road, then that was one way of doing it. And the real issue that you as far as I'm, thinking about or concerned about it, is we're looking at life safety issues.
Mhm.
So if that four-story building is totally sprinkled, I have sprinklers throughout the thing, then I've taken care of that issue. Now, that's obviously way different than style and what the thing looks like. But I've taken care of life safety and we can, I'm not thinking about it as an industrial building. I'm thinking about it in that mixed use context. So maybe it's a M,
Yeah, I guess
Y, not an I.
yeah, okay. It's
So
like a Costco type ceiling.
Yeah, right.
Situation, but I guess what I'm saying is in things like that, there's not usually another floor above it.
Right. No, well,
So I
right.
think we have to sort of be cognizant of both those options being something somebody wants to build. And
So what would
Make it
be the way to,
I don't know, I
like,
mean,
are you saying limit the number of stories? Or require like, we can't really say you have to build X number of stories.
oh no,
You
I'm
know what I'm
not saying that either.
Yeah,
I guess
I, yeah,
I'm definitely saying the first thing that you responded to, that one solution could be if you have a tall building. I guess that's all I'm saying. I don't think we wanna have a situation where there's like a 45-story building that's only one floor, is what I'm saying. I don't think we want that, or a
Yeah.
45-story building, a 45-foot tall building that's only 2 floors.
Yeah, I think of
I'm
that
pretty
as,
sure like nobody in Old Saybrook would, well, I don't know, I can speak for the whole
I-
town, but like, I just,
Well, or even what's the use?
I guess I think like, right, so I don't know, I mean, that's why I was wondering what the use of that would be, I guess that's all, I'm just sort of saying. I wouldn't wanna have regulation, like design standards that sort of allowed for a
Yeah.
2-story, 45-foot.
but
Tall.
does it matter how many stories it is if it looks straight from the outside?
Not to me, like what
You know
you
what I'm
said.
saying?
No,
Well, and
yeah,
also
not
I
to
will
me.
say like a lot of marine use, like the marine uses, they need that kind of height, like the development, the new. Ferry Point proposal,
Hmm.
they're going to like 56 feet.
For a 1-story building.
Yeah, because they store
not for-
boats and they work on them, so. And I'm not saying we have to allow that, but I do think a lot of the marine uses need a lot of height. It's also partly because of how much storage they need to be able to like fit and maneuverability within.
And do you think in that zone they're gonna have anything about like window heights or facade treatments at certain stories?
Well,
I guess
that's
what I'm wondering.
That's a different situation because
Yeah.
they're down a hill, so
Yeah.
like what you see from the road
nothing.
is not the same as.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying is that use needs some height. And I do think there are other types of.
so are they actually getting 55-foot buildings over there and the fire department is okay with that? Or we just haven't gotten that far yet?
right.
It hasn't gone to zone, yeah, that's just,
This is a pre-development discussion.
it's in marine industrial zone.
Yeah.
And I think it might be in a gateway.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, no, I should take that back. They are proposing a new zone. They're proposing new zone. But they have a lot of pre-existing nonconformities and they have a lot, it's a very like specific situation. Because they're like,
It's a slope.
yeah. There's the road and then there's like the driveways that.
Right.
So when you drive by, it look like a 1-story
Yeah.
building, that's
I think
12
it'll
feet
look
high.
like it two or something,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let me just, Chief Johnson from the Old Saybrook Fire Department has had an opportunity to listen to some of our discussions, and he sent me an email also today. He would like to be engaged when we are talking about things like sprinklers and building heights and those kinds of things. And I told him, but this is all very preliminary, but we would definitely have the fire department, fire marshal, those folks involved in this once we begin to get any kind of certainty into what we wanted to recommend. So just putting it out.
Okay, and so maybe we wanna reconsider. Number of stories.
Or the appearance of the number of
Right.
stories.
Right. I do still like, we can't say, right, so we can't, if we can't say. You can have X number of feet, but you have to have at least this many stories to do it. Then. Like, we can give a maximum number of stories, but we
Right.
can't give a minimum number
Right.
of stories, so then that would speak to, I think. Either. Right, just decreasing what's allowed, and that's just a number that I, again, like a raw, like, you know, like,
Yeah.
but, or to Chris's point, I think there's also the option of like. I've seen zoning regulations where it's like the further back you are from the road. You can
Yeah.
gain height.
Yeah.
So. Okay, and then high window requirements. Is there a better word for that? Glazing.
Percentage, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, and then what I call building protrusion, so like the awnings and all those types of things, and then facade interruptions or basically treatments, like that was sort of the consensus of, I think, what everybody liked. Are there more thoughts on that?
The only thing I would add to that, beyond facade interruptions, I think when we saw the multifamily housing, that having the balcony as interruptions, was very appealing as well.
Maybe I'm the only person who voted yes on some of those ones, but I thought that there were some that were very simple, modern, like sleek looking things that. I thought people, we sort of had some consensus that they looked okay. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't want to write them out.
No,
I don't,
no, I'm not suggesting we should require it, but I'm just looking at kind of what what in my mind looked good.
And in the back of all that is also like, again, what can we turn into regulation,
Mhm.
right? So, because. Okay, so balconies for housing, okay, overhead doors not on the street facing side, is everybody okay?
Well,
unless they're on glass.
Well,
Yes, exactly.
there were the ones that were
Yeah.
part of the converted,
Yeah,
and I was
industrial.
thinking about that, and I.
What was it, boho industrial?
Yeah, yeah.
That was, those were overhead doors, but they were pretty cool.
So maybe there's something, if it's converted or it's designed a certain way, then it's okay. Also, in most of those situations, that was a pre-existing building where they were able to turn the overhead into something fun or cool looking, So do we wanna have like a caveat there
What I would, rather than calling it overhead doors, I would call it like loading
or
bays.
days? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. That's really the objection as well.
Yeah.
That
okay.
would be hard though if you were getting big trucks in and it had to be in the back and you didn't have a large lot size. You know what I'm saying? Like. If you were the kind of business that needed to get. Deliveries of 18-wheelers or what have you, and you are now required to have that in the back. I mean, I guess if it's a new build, it's no big deal, but.
Yeah, I think if you're, and again,
Movability.
right, and so none of this, again, would apply to. Like everybody, their situation, their current situation is their current situation, so it's only if you do something. You start doing new things, expanding or redeveloping or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I think. Now you have to provide. I mean, if they have. A loading bay, then they probably need to, either they're gonna have the space for the truck to kind of maneuver in the front or maneuver in the back, so I think, I mean,
I think what I'm thinking of is that a lot of what's currently there,
yeah.
we're all on smaller lot sizes. Like right next to me, Jessica and Ken are always getting. 18-wheelers delivering and it's a. Problem is not the right word, it's not a problem, but like, there just isn't the maneuverability. And their loading is kind of on the side of their building. And kind of comes through my lot, so they end up having the 18-wheeler on Route 1, and then they, bring stuff down, and, so I think a lot of us who are there already have that smaller. That's probably why I'm thinking of it,
Yeah.
because I'm not used to thinking about these huge lots that could potentially be.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
One other thing I'll say about the loading bays is when we looked at them, the ones that we liked, I feel like for the most part, they were in that conversion
Right.
sort of type of use, and they were being used for pedestrians, like to come into
Yeah.
like a brewery or something.
Yeah.
In reality, a new loading bay is like a lot of times they're up off the ground. They're not like where people are walking in. They're like up as high as the back of a better truck, and they have like a huge concrete platform that sticks out. So I guess that's the thing that I think about is when we think I don't know, like a worst case scenario, I guess.
Yeah.
I just feel like, I don't know, I'm just putting it out there that we should just blanketly say, yeah, yes to, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just sort of think there's like unintended consequences or some of the things.
Well, that's what we're gonna have to
Yeah.
keep working through. And the more people we talk to, the more we'll learn about what the unintended consequences.
So I'll say like, I think there's a general consensus on that conceptually, but like maybe we need to
Yeah.
try and I think that's true with all this stuff. Like, is the general consensus there or does it need to be tweaked? Like, I think height in building stories maybe needs to be, or at least height needs to be investigated a little more. Size. That's why I didn't put a lot of numbers in yet because I just felt like. Okay, so slides 2, 3, 4, and 23. So this is, all right, so, I don't know. Okay, 3, 5. Oh yeah, it's with the, okay, so slide 2 is this one. And that was generally more no, like leaned a little more no, sort of in the middle. Oh, then there was this one, which got almost universal yeses. So I think, Emily, that's maybe like, we're talking about the more like sleek,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like to me, that's a 1-story building that's very tall.
Yeah, yeah.
Not like but if you could imagine that building stacked on top of itself, it might
Right.
still be under 45 feet, but it wouldn't look as good.
Well, and I think, so that's why I wanted to, so this one has a lot more treatments than this one. Than these. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to talk about is like, what do we not like about, say, this one or this one, maybe not that one, but versus these. Keeping in mind that we can't dictate things like building color and material.
Well, if we have a general, if there's a general consensus that we don't wanna lose our air rights in this location, because it's not a lot, we don't have a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
So we want 2-story, 3-story, we wanna be able to stack this thing up, so we're those situations where we're willing to forego that second story, then is it like this marine commercial? 50 feet, it's just all over New England for these type. I look at that building and it's in Chester and it'll be down the hill over here. It's in Essex Boat Works. They're all like that. And for that purpose. They're working on boats year round. They're storing boats through the winter. And that's what I see when I see that building. The other 2 buildings, what I see are US Postal Service.
The first one?
The first boat,
Yeah.
2 and 3, that's the post office.
Yeah.
That one definitely.
And that's a nice post office,
I see car wash.
or and car wash.
So what from a, I guess from a building standpoint, oh, there was one more, hold on, let me go to this. Because I hear what you said. That's it. This one, I believe. So this one also. This one was about evenly split, leaned a little more no. So I just, when we're thinking about regulating building design and how we're codifying that. That's what I kind of wanted to talk about, is like, what do we see that we like or don't, and maybe that's something to think about a little bit more,
I
but.
mean, again, the way I look at those, the first thing that pops in my head is, do we say, you know, in this zone, in this, what we're looking at is, well, we'll have special exceptions for marine commercial. Cause that's what's there. And in those situations, they can be one story and they can be up to whatever they need to be up to. And that's just a special exception. They've got to come through, they've got to go through all the special
To gain
rules.
height, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good point,
that's a way to
Well,
fix it.
That doesn't
address the other.
address the like, that people could still build the post office. One, you know what I mean?
Well,
Well, and
I'm saying they're gonna come in with a special exception to go up the height.
Yeah.
And then we'll run through those regulations. Not that they'll come in and do the, 15-foot tall building.
But, so what I'm getting at, I think, is this building that has been deemed less desirable. Has a lot more treatments on it
Yeah.
than this building, which is deemed designed like a building design we don't want than these buildings. So that's what I'm trying to like understand from people from a design standpoint, is like, or a building form standpoint, or at least get everybody to think about is. Someone can build, say, one of these according to the height and we said we didn't like the kind of flattish roof and we didn't like the bare walls and things like that. So what do we like about these and can we differentiate that? And what don't we like about this and can we differentiate it?
So I'd say. One
From a
thing
design.
from like a design standpoint, so like, well. Just to back up, like one thing I like about those is that I feel like those are what people want to build there currently, which maybe is not true, but. If I think of it as like a contractor type of corridor right now, not entirely, but like to some extent. That's the kind, that's the kind of building, it's like a metal sided. Simple gable with a lot of height, so. But in terms of why it's successful, I guess, like, there's two things to me. One is just maybe the quality of the material or the attention to detail, the proportions, and you can't really regulate that.
Right.
So like, we're kind of screwed. But one thing maybe we could regulate is the idea that, this one, both of these, it's the gable end is facing the street or facing us as we look at it. And the other one, just the way the picture is, there is a gable end kind of, but it's more like we're looking at the like the longitudinal wall of it, which, and that last one, that's slide 23. I think that also, maybe if we saw that building from the front as opposed to from the side, maybe it swing just slightly in the other direction.
I feel like for some reason, the bigger building has like an openness to it, and if I was like this slide that you have up right here, like I don't like the one with the blue doors at all, but I could be persuaded on the top one. Like there's something more open about it, and those other two that you were showing, that why don't we like them? It's,
Yes, you're right.
they're very functional. I mean, they probably do exactly what they need to be doing, but they're not like welcoming.
Oh, I think you're so right, because if you took those two garage doors that we see on this one and imagine the slide with the black facade. With those two garage doors closed where that opening is, none of us would like that building anymore.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is like, to me, that's like a building where. people rent a space. And they don't actually want anybody to know who they are, what they're there for their
Right.
business, you know, who knows, maybe they're running some, you know. Some tall grandma sell out of it,
Yeah.
like, it's so nondescript, it has no character.
And to me, it violates the fundamental purpose of, it's just a one story you can't do anything about. If you're willing to sacrifice a second, third floor, what's the purpose? The purpose fits within, what we're trying to do in the zone. Then I'm willing to look at, and, you know, the openness, that one picture you see right through the building, which is what you see in a lot of the other marine coastal buildings.
It is interesting too that you pointed out though, almost like, this is not the scientific way to talk about it, I'm sure, but the short end is facing
Yeah.
the street, so it sort of changes your perspective a little bit, like I hadn't thought about it that way.
Well, and I think it's more interesting because that, what is facing us gives us a sense of what it is. You
They
know,
have that really cool, like, big, yeah, logo there and a little bit of stuff to soften up the front, so. I don't know.
Right, so, yeah, so maybe, I think the landscaping and also this, I do think, so this is, when it's closed, it's still windows
Yeah.
instead of, this is, I mean, this has gotta be at least at least like 35% window on this side.
Yeah.
That's a,
Hmm.
if you consider this all window,
Mhm.
so that is maybe, I hadn't really thought about that, but that's a lot different than this.
Right, right.
And goes to maybe also Jennifer's. This one again is a lot more window, the bay doors are all windows.
So I
So,
said, we like windows.
yeah. Um,
I mean, that, one with the blue is like the building equivalent of a storage locker.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like, for your gym clothes, isn't it?
Yeah. Um,
But I think Chris made a good point a few minutes ago that I just wanna, and that is kind of as, at least as I'm thinking about this. I'm not thinking necessarily about how all of these building types are mushed together. But, you know, maybe we do, maybe this really speaks to those.
Yeah.
And, you know, where in a zone set up, that kind of building, you know, becomes much more appropriate, you know, than. It just the, when you said it, I realized, yeah, that's possible too.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, okay, you can go. Maybe you can go higher, but it's only with a, but in that case, it's a special exception, and then we have a lot more. The zoning commission has a lot more jurisdiction over what it looks like.
Yeah.
So it can be more case by case if it goes, if it is going to be a one story.
Right.
Whatever. The tough thing is we can't make anybody, we can't say you have to have more than one story. So if we get one of these buildings. I wanna try to make sure that the building form is kind of. The best we can.
Is that right? We can't,
You can't have a minimum number of stories.
But can
Like you
you,
can't
but
say
can
you,
you do a minimum number of square feet?
Yes.
So that you would end up having to have stories if you're gonna meet your minimum?
yes.
That's one way of getting around it, yeah.
I mean,
That's,
sorry.
okay, that's a good point.
Or maybe could you ever have like different requirements for what's like street facing versus what's behind?
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, like a lot of times with glazing, that's. It's like no one really cares how many windows are in the back.
I mean, even buildings, like if you had like more buildings that were lining the street and then you had, because we've talked about how deep those lots are. And then there was separate development, not in the street view, like maybe there would be separate requirements. I don't know.
Yeah, and
Maybe
you,
that's too complicated.
no, you can, like like Chris said, you can say like, if you're. Like the way I've seen the regulation is you have your usual setback, or, you know, sometimes you don't have any setback if you want to build it right on the street. But you have your usual setback, and then for every foot you go back, you gain half a foot of height, or for every foot you go back, additionally, you gain 1 foot of height. That's kind of.
So are you sort of suggesting like for every foot you go back, you lose 5% of glazing requirement? Like the reverse
I see.
almost? I thought that's what you were saying, but maybe that's not what you're saying.
I guess I'm just, maybe, we would be less picky about how it's the like outward look of it.
What the
when-
backyard looks like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I
when
think
you
so.
see it.
Like a lot of like historic districts have like, if it's visible from the public way,
Yeah.
and that's the
Okay.
threshold. So like, I think sometimes it's annoying because you're like, oh, okay, so one person standing in one spot can see that far back. But it's usually,
I mean, we might not wanna do that.
Yeah.
Though, because if we get. Like some kind of walkway or pedestrian.
Right, people
like,
are gonna go
in the
back there.
Back by the water, like, we're going to have people seeing it one way or the other from more than one side, because we love to take advantage of the natural resources there, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So maybe we wouldn't want to consider that.
No, and I think that's a good point is.
But it would give you.
Sort of
would
like
give you
the
an
water view and the street view.
But it would give you an opportunity, and again, same thing, when you see that, you go back. And we talked about before, helps you with the curb cut, so you don't have a bunch of curb cuts all the way, you just, you're gonna come in and go out type of thing, and you're gonna go back. And this is, your amphitheater idea. And I was thinking about, that sets up right now, back in that area for natural amphitheater.
Yeah.
That you could approach from a water, you could approach from town, and we could have a summer concert series there in the lawn. And if somebody's willing to do that, well then, okay, you get to go up your 4 stories.
Well, and I think that speaks to I think what we keep kind of like coming up against a little bit is. What, if we're talking about a more. Industrial use or say a marine related use, and maybe there is something more commercial out at the street or whatever, and then further back is. Kind of the work, I'll call it shed, but it's, the work building and the storage building and all that area. How that gets maybe treated in stepping back is a lot different than if you have a sort of a mixed use development that people are going to, where there's like a central public area, that's like sort of a self-enveloped development that people are going to visit and be inside of walking around.
Which is what we really like with like the Nashville slides, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, Emily and I were talking a little bit about this after last meeting, I think there's room for both, we just have to figure out exactly how, yeah. But I like the point of keeping in mind, like if there are people if we do have some sort of pedestrian way in the back there, we should think about what that looks like. Okay, living days we already talked about.
Wait, just about the height thing, again, can zoning regulations say something like? The maximum building height in the zone for a 4-story building is 45 feet, the maximum building height for a 3-story building is 35 feet. In the same zone, or is that not, I'm just curious.
I've never seen that done, but I'm not sure that you couldn't do it.
I've seen the definition of stories.
Yes, which we
A
have
story,
now.
story is this high.
Right,
Stories are the number of.
right.
Yeah, but I guess that's still saying, it doesn't ever say you have to have a certain number of stories, so this would be like sort of like a back,
That's how you get to your height.
oh, yeah, like a backdoor way of saying.
A story has to be 12 feet. A story can be no more than
That's
12.
not what I'm trying to suggest, but, cause I don't. Maybe it is.
So if you
Like
said a
you're saying
story can
every
be no more
story
than
is-
12 feet, then you're looking at 4 stories being 48 feet.
Part of the reason our regs now differentiate between height and story is because when you have a sloped roof, there's a certain area under that roof that's not considered like
A
for
floor.
floor area. So, it's like an interplay between what's
Yeah,
allowed
like
for
if you have a
height,
flat
how
roof,
you
so
slope
you
the
don't
roof.
have- Right. Yeah, I guess I don't think like saying the story is 12 feet is really what we'd be after here, because we're sort of trying to say that we would be okay with having a 30-foot first floor for the right use. I guess what I'm just saying is there, I was just curious if that was a thing you could do. Yeah,
We can incentivize and
Yeah.
say you're allowed more footage with more stories
Mm,
without like not requiring it, but saying if if you have a single story building, you can go up to. X
right, like you
number.
get an extra
If you have
2% of coverage or something.
Well, or
Or
height,
height.
yeah. Does
Oh,
that,
and the floor, yeah, okay.
um. That might
Yeah,
be something. Okay, and then I think we already talked about this. So this, okay, so I think with anything that's like warehouse industrial style, we're talking small to mid, not giant, and I think that speaks to like, we had this slide of this building versus when you backed out and saw the same building. Like, I think the general consensus was, yeah, so the general consensus at first was like, okay, that's not bad, although I mean, if you look, it's pretty big. But then seeing this, people were like, no way. So, I think that speaks to, this was just too big, like, this part was fine and lovely and like kind of a nice whatever. And if it had like a little bit of warehouse behind it, like this little part right here with some little, like some warehouse behind it, that might be okay, but like, this was just way too much. Is that accurate or not really?
I think that's fair.
Okay,
I think we'd have a problem trying to sell
yeah,
any big box.
yeah,
But you could see from when you had the smaller picture of it,
yeah,
how if you treated an industrial property a little bit differently, it had the green, it had kind of the nice entryway that it softened it a little bit and people didn't mind it until they saw what it really looked
well, I
like.
think
It was
that's the
like a
thing, is
vast
how can you
crowd
see that?
entryway,
Yeah, see it,
like
it's
a
not successful. You
giant
can never see it,
giant
sure.
Yeah.
box store, you know, I'm in front of a Home Depot, it was,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. And then last.
I wish my front looked like that, that little part.
Yeah, it's, I know, it's not. Okay, and then in terms of lot development, I think we talked about majority of parking, if not all of the parking being behind the building. And I just put a note about that we should think about walkability of the particular site,
Mhm.
especially for larger developments. All right, that's it. That's enough out of me.
Great.
I never was able to see the results. Was anybody else able to see?
Yeah,
it?
I did
the
see it, I
second.
added the second one.
Yeah, the second.
I thought I did.
I did, and I
did
had
both,
trouble
and neither
at
one
first,
showed it.
I had to go out to like PowerPoint for the web or something.
Oh, really?
Actually, if you, they all look like,
Like a little like.
yeah, they all look
gray,
like PDFs.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
go down about 3/4 of the way, then you see the PowerPoint. But they're tiny little,
Right.
it took me
Right, to
some
figure out
bouncing up
which
and down,
one,
that's when I said,
okay.
Oh, is that right? Because on
but
mine.
they're there.
Maybe.
I mean, I found the file, I found both files,
Yeah,
and I
okay.
opened both, and
Yeah.
one of them didn't have the results at all, and the other one, every other page was like a results page, but nothing was on it. Or
Yeah.
there was like a weird
When I
gray
let it
icon.
open it in some different,
So you opened it in a different program?
Microsoft, I have Microsoft Office or something, and so it asked me if I wanted
Or
to
maybe I,
give it access, and I
yeah.
said yes.
okay.
Oh, interesting. I opened in an Apple environment and opened right up.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah. This is
Yeah,
not.
sorry.
This is great, no,
Okay, okay.
you're the one that should be exhausted.
I know.
This is exactly what we need to do. What I would ask. Emily, from your experience with ARB,
Yeah.
what? What are they looking for? They were talking design and being able to articulate design. But then once we think about going in front of ARB, what's they're waiting for an actual project and wanting to see the pictures of that project. Is that what their purpose is?
Yeah, you mean like when an applicant comes before them, like
Right,
when
they
an
don't,
applicant.
they
comes
don't,
to
they don't
ARB.
sign off on what we're talking about here, right?
Not the regulations themselves, but
Okay.
they basically review the design standards, but part of the regulations, like they review the project, the applicant's project in terms of the design standards, which I feel like most of the time is the articulation and facade one is probably like the biggest one. And signage, which we haven't talked about at all, but we should for the streetscape. And lighting. And there are regulations in the design standards about like the percentage of glazing, but it's very weird in our standards because it's sort of like written for the subdivisions, but it's like not clear that it's only written for the subdivisions, so you could try to apply it to like an industrial building. It's kind of weird, but I'd say yeah, there's certain things about glazing or that like the size of like glazing on the lower levels versus the upper levels a little bit. Roof articulation is another big one. But the thing is like like there's a lot of things that are, like when things come through as special exceptions, I guess, there's a little bit more opportunity to sort of like shape things or like work together with the applicant to be like, all right, if this is what your goal is, could you kind of like see what the town is trying to get in this respect, so we, it's sort of mutually beneficial. I feel like they try to do that a lot, like sort of, but I kind of thought, actually, I'm not really sure. I feel like when I'm here, sometimes the idea is to not have special exceptions because developers wanna know what they can do, and the special exception is not doing it, but then whenever, we're always saying like, oh, we can do that with a special exception. So I think from ARB's perspective, yeah, the special exceptions are nice because you can, maybe feel like you can ask for the things that you want to ask for because it's not by right. What they wanted, what the applicant is trying to do is not always by right, but in the end, at least when I was on ARB, I felt like most people's goal was really to reach a consensus and find something that would make most people pretty happy. So, I guess I sometimes think a special exception made that happen, but I would say it was the facade articulation and better glazing. We didn't really talk about the glazing that much because you couldn't really like point to it in the regs and be like, this is so clear, you have to do this. But it would have been nice if you could point to something like that in the regs and say, this is so clear, you have to do this. But ARB is just advisory, so they're relying on zoning to back them up when the applicant then goes to zoning and says,
nice.
ARB wanted us to change, bump this out 2 feet or add like an overhang here. I guess that they could have said like, no, you don't have to do that. I mean, some of it is just, it is the zoning reg, but all those things that are the design standards that aren't quite zoning regs are like a little bit harder for ARB by itself to enforce, like they can't actually enforce it.
Good.
ARB does ARB, I think, I know the answer, ARB uses the zoning regs for building form and.
Yeah, it's like section 68.
Yeah, so that's what that's what you guys use or used as like your your guidance sort of?
Yeah, I'd say 60,
Accurate.
section 68 is like the biggest one that we would look
Okay.
at. But then I think it's like 64 or 63, there's like a landscape one and there's a signage one.
Yeah.
So it was mostly this. I mean, most of the stuff that would come with just signage, like it wouldn't even be, it's only when there was a big projects, there's not that many of them all the time, you know? Yeah, and then it would get like a little bit. You know, there's some parts where there was like a little bit of overlap where maybe. It was more of zoning, you know, some of the site stuff was sort of like. Trying to think of an example. Like parking, I'd say parking, you know, parking is more of like a zoning regulation issue and zoning would review that for a site plan. Application, but then landscaping in the parking islands was sort of part of ARB. A little, but it was, I think there's like a little bit of tension there, like we're just uncertainty about like how much you could ask for, or if you would just not touch that and. Leave it to zoning to talk about that. So from my perspective, I would say. Like if the design standards were more clear, like this is the part that ARB is looking at, this is the part that zoning's looking at, and then like within the part that ARB is looking at. A little more straightforward. And probably addressing glazing, a little bit more addressing glazing or lighting. Would be helpful. I mean, there's like this one regulation in there, or I don't know if it's not a regulation, that's about. And I think it's like, it's, cause you can't really, you know, it's about character or the character, you know, you kind of can't say that, but you can't, there's something in there about it, so. I think that's one that if there was a way. To do that realistically and like fairly, it would be nice to have something like that.
All right, so Casey, what do you think next steps are?
What I would, I think would make sense is for me to start to bulk this up a little bit. Go over it with Emily and Doug. And then, I think the next, what I think would make sense is next to see how does this compare with the existing building form, you know, those, lot design and building form requirements and the existing zones that are there.
Okay.
And to get that to you guys, I just have to figure out the best way to like present the information in a consumable way.
Yeah, in a way that we all will understand.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about timing then. Do you want to kind of keep our foot on the gas and meet second Thursday in July, which would be July 9th? Or do you want a little more time and go to the 23rd?
I'd say add the time,
Yeah,
so you guys can, the three of you guys can really work on this thing.
yeah, that
The
would,
three of you put your expertise together, I think would be more helpful, and let's take the extra 14 days.
Okay. All right, so we'll cancel the 9th. And we'll plan on the 23rd. Is everybody around on the 23rd?
I'm away on the 23rd,
That is not a good thing.
but I,
Congratulations, everybody.
Once again, you're here.
I know, but right, can we nominate Doug?
So you're not,
I may be, we're gonna be camping, so I don't even know if I will have like internet service.
okay.
What about the 16th? Could we split the difference or?
Yeah, what's,
That would work for me.
how are people on the 16th?
I
I'm
just have
away
to make
from
sure I
that.
can get over.
You're such.
I'm in trade show, so I would be completely out of it.
Oh, you're gone. Oh, I'm,
30? I know we're getting out there, but
when do you, are you gone all that week?
It's the only week.
Yeah, no, everybody needs that.
I can do the 30th if we do go that far.
Or like, I'm fine with somebody else, if we were done, wanting to take.
I don't think
I feel like I wouldn't be as.
Look at that. Look at
I
that.
mean, or I'd be too biased. Push my own agenda too much.
All right,
Maybe
what
not
about the
really.
thirtieth? Good,
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 let's do that.
okay, 30th it is.
And I would like to make a suggestion, Bruce, is to push that 17th. Are we,
Out.
yeah, go into September with that?
I think probably better attendance anyway.
Yep.
So, okay, good,
Um,
that'll give us a little more time to work toward that.
Yeah.
do you wanna talk about uses at all, like now or between now and then?
Not now.
Yeah.
No, I think if we can come back with kind of a better sense of design. And if by between now and then, it can get shared out to people to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Then what we could do is we could engage the uses discussion as kind of the second half of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
All right, are we all okay?
Good, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Sure.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Great job, everyone, thank you very much.
That was really informative.